Okay, we are in the Gemara in Taanis, and we are starting a new parak. Exciting time. We're going to start from Chav Vav. We're going to start from the Mishnah. B'shloisha prakim b'shono kohanim noisim eskapayim arba pamim b'yoyim b'shachar z'musim minchu b'nil l'sharim. There are three times during the year when the kohanim they raise their palms, aka they duchen, and they bless everyone in the shul. Arba pamim bayom. So there are three times that this happens for four times during the day. B'shachris and musaf mincha minil sharim. It happens shachris, musaf, mincha, they duchen, and by ne'ilah. Okay, these are the three times. Betanios, b'ma'amados, ubiyom kippurim. When there's fast, when there's ma'amados, which we'll see what those are, and on Yom Kippur. Elohim ma'amados, these are ma'amados. Lafi shenemar, the pasuk says, "Avz b'nei korbani lachmi." Command the Jews to bring the korban. How could the sacrifice, the korban of a person be brought and he's not standing by it? So they established that on each, so the prophets, the first prophets, the original prophets established that there are going to be 24 watches, and on every single watch, there's going to be a place over there in Yerushalayim that they're going to stand, the Kohanim, Levim, and the Yisraelim. הגיע זמן המשמר לארנו, יזכלם ואביה מוילים מירושלים וישראל שבויס משאבים זכרתם לירדאים וקוראים במעשה בראשית. Once the time reached for the watch, so then they're gonna go to Yerushalayim, the Kohanim Leviim, they're gonna go to Yerushalayim, the Yisraelim in that watch, they're gonna gather to their cities and they are gonna lane Maisa Bereshis, creation of the world. Skip the parentheses. B'yom Rishon on the first day, Bereshis v'hi Berakia. They're going to be laning those two sections, Bereshis and v'hi Berakia. B'sheni on the second day, Yehi Berakia v'kavu Mayim. B'shlishi on the third day, they're going to lane Yikavu Mayim v'hi Meroris. B'Reviah on the fourth day, it's going to be Yehi Meroris v'Yishushu Mayim. B'chamishi on the fifth day, Yishushu Mayim v'Totzi Haaretz. B'shishi on the sixth day, v'Totzi Haaretz. So they're going to do that one, and they're going to do Vayechulu. Vayechulu Shamayim. But Parsha Gedola in the big Parsha, which Rashi explains, out of these Parshas, so they're going to split it up into two different aliyahs. For example, the first Parsha of Bereshis Rashi explained, and because it has five sukkim, they're going to read that with two, split it up. And it's going to be Yehirakia with one, it'll be Yom Mashini Yehirakia with another one, and you go through the entire calculation over here. Oisoi Bishnayim v'hakatana b'yachid. And the smaller one is going to be individually done. And Rashi goes through this calculation over here. B'shach is in the morning of Musaf, and by Musaf the davening b'mincha and mincha nechnasim v'korin al piyim kekorin neshma. So then they're going to enter in and lane by heart, like they are reciting Shema. Erev Shabbos and Mincha loy hayin nechas b'kol v'Shabbos. But on Erev Shabbos and Mincha, they would not enter in because of honor of Shabbos. Kol yom sheyish v'halal, every single day when there's halal. Ain bo the bached ma'amid b'shachris. You don't do the ma'amid in the morning. Korban musaf ain bo b'ne'ilah. So if there's a korban musaf, so then you don't do it. The idea why you wouldn't do it at these times is because they were preoccupied. That's the idea. Korban eitzim ain by the mincha. If there was the korban, if there was the sacrifice of the wood, you wouldn't do it at mincha. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. Amar loy ben Azai said, Kachayir Rabbi Yeshua Shoyna. This is what Rabbi Yeshua would taught. Korban musaf ain b'mincha. Korban eitzim ain b'meila. If there is a korban musaf, then you wouldn't do it at mincha. If there was a korban for the wood, so then you wouldn't do neila. Chazar Rabbi Akiva liyoshona ki ben Azai. Rabbi Akiva returned and taught like ben Azai. Man eitzi kohanim v'am tisha. The time for the wood for the Kohanim and the nation is going to be 9. Rashi explains over here that there were 9 times that the Kohanim and the nation that they would go and that they would bring this wood and these korbanos. And what are the 9 times? So the Mishnah continues to explain. On the first of Nisan, it was the sons of Arach ben Yehuda. Be'esrim, on the 20th of Tammuz, it was going to be Bnei David ben Yehuda. Be'chamish B'av, on the 5th of Av, it was going to be Bnei Parash ben Yehuda. Be'shiva Bo, on the 7th, it's going to be Ben Yehudadav ben Rechav. Be'asara, so on the 10th of it, it's going to be Bo Bnei Sinah ben Binyamin. Be'chamisha Asar, Bo, on the 15th, it's going to be Bnei Zetua ben Yehuda, v'imohem, and with them Kohanim Levim v'kol mi sheta'a b'shivto, anyone who made a mistake with his tribe, literally. So it was a day to give it to them. Ubenei Genuvi Ali, and the literally the children of thieves that maybe had a type of club or something. Ubenei Kitsua, and literally the people who are cut off Kitzios with the figs, cut the figs. The Esrim Bo on the 20th. Gonna be Bnei Petach Moa ben Yehuda on the 20th of El Be'esrim Be'elul Bnei Edion ben Yehuda. So it's gonna be him. Be'echa B'Teves on the first of Teves Shavu Bnei Parash Nia. So then they're already gonna return the children of Parash for the second day. Be'echa B'Teves Lo Haybo Mammon. On the second of Teves there was no Ma'amad Shahaya Bo Halal V'Korban Musaf V'Korban Eitzim, because there was Halal the Korban Musaf and the Korban for the wood, sacrifice for the wood. Chamisha Devarim Meiru Asav L'Seina B'Shiva Sodar B'Tammuz V'Chamisha B'Tisha B'Av. There were five things that occurred to our ancestors on the 17th of Tammuz, and five things that occurred on Tisha B'Av. B'Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, on the 17th of Tammuz, Nishabra Luchos, the Luchos were broken. Ubatal Tamid, and the Korban Tamid, they were no longer able to bring it anymore. Rashi explains that they decreed a Kriyan that they weren't allowed to bring it anymore. V'Hukva, a year, the city was like breached, it was surrounded. V'Sarfa Fuchavas as a Torah, and then he burnt the Torah Fuchavas. V'Hem Itzel Behechel, and he put an idol in the Hechel, in the base of Mikdash. But Tisha B'Av, on Tisha B'Av, coming up in a few days, few weeks rather, Nigzer Alav Osenu Shelo Yikansu La'aretz. It was decreed on our forefathers not to enter into um, the land, into Israel, our predecessors. V'char Bais Rishon B'Shnina, the first and second base of Mikdash were destroyed. V'Nekalda Beitar was captured. V'nichrasha ha'ir, the city was plowed. Mishnechnatzav b'matim b'simcha. When Av enters in the month of Av, we decrease our happiness. Shabbos shachal tisha b'av liyos b'socha asam l'saper u'melakabis chamisha mutar mibnei kavah Shabbos. If the week falls out of Tisha B'Av, that week it's called Shvuah Shechaba, the week the Tisha B'Av falls out on, so then it's prohibited to get a haircut and to launder. And on the 5th, it's permissible because of honoring Shabbos. Nowadays, our custom is to go back even earlier and not even get a haircut even from 3 weeks. And obviously, but this is the Mishnah. All of the halachas are a discussion in of itself. Erev Tisha B'Av, on the eve of Tisha B'Av, this is referring to after halachic midday, the Suda Masekes, the last meal that a person eats before Tisha B'Av. Yolochel Adam, a person is not allowed to eat. Shnei Tavshilin, two dishes. Lo yochel basar lo yishteh yain, you can't have meat, and nor could you have wine. Rashi adds other things that you can have, for example, meat, fish, meat, eggs on it, fish and an egg on it. Whole discussion of itself, and there's a whole discussion the reason for this. Halach over here. The main idea is to remember the the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and to be in pain over it. And a lot of food is considered something that is like honorable and pleasurable, and we should decrease that. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Yeshana. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says you should change from what you usually eat. Rabbi Yehuda Mechai b'kafiyas mitav lahod l'chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda would obligate turning over the beds, but the chachamim didn't agree to that. That's a whole discussion. Comes up in Roi Katan as well. Amar Rabbi Yishua Megamliel Lo Hayimam Tovim Yisrael Kol Chamish Zar Ba'av Ki Yom Kippurim Shebehem Beno Yisrael Yoitzi Bekli She'ulin Shel Levaisis Misheinu Shel. Right, so there were no days that were happy for the Jews like the 15th and Av, and like Yom Kippur, because on the 15th of Av, so what happened? So the Jewish girls would come. This is called Tubath. The Jewish girls would come out, obviously marriageable age, and they would go wearing garments that were white, that were borrowed, not to embarrass someone that doesn't have any. So this is a beautiful thing that even people who are wealthy, Rashi explains, will go out with borrowed clothing, so people wouldn't know who was wealthy and who wasn't. It should be pointed out there's an interesting explanation in the Meiri, based on what the Meiri says over here, why this is located in the Mishnah where it is. After we're talking about, the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and all of the difficulties and hardships that happen, now the Mishnah is going to explain, don't give up, don't be upset with all of the hardships, with all the difficulty that happened, because look, we also have beautiful times after, and look at what happened. And we have its special days of happiness. And look at what happened in this time. And as we'll see in the continuation of the Mishnah, there's going to be a whole discussion, obviously, in the Gemara as to why these were happy times. We understand that Yom Kippur, because we're forgiven for our sins, and Tu B'Av is going to be a massive discussion in and of itself in the Gemara. Okay, the Mishnah continues over here and says, the Jewish girls, they would go out of Jerusalem, and they would go out and they would dance in the vineyards. And what would they say? It's important to point out that the Kolbo already explains, very important before we even continue with this Mishnah. The Kolbo in Siman Samach Beis explains, don't say like, how could they go out and then they were going to be doing these dances and then any guy could just take there and decide, oh, you're going to be my wife. So the basic idea is that these people, they were unable to get married to other people. So they went to this as a last resort, as an option, and they decided that this is going to be the custom in order that they're going to find their spouse instead of just growing gray hair and never getting married. So that's an important idea. Anyways, continuing the Mishnah, Mahay Omros, what would they say? They said, look at what you're choosing over here, which means that this is actually, who would say this? This is the person who is beautiful. They said, go after our physical appearance. However, the person who had good lineage, what we call yichus, they said, don't look at the beauty, look at the family. Because at the end of the day, it matters the children, not the temporary pleasures of our looks. Okay, Sheker Hachain. This is referring to the one who weren't good looking and who didn't have good yichus, good lineage. Rather, they had good midos, good characteristic traits, and they feared Hashem. So they said Sheker Hachain ve'havayofi yishuras Hashem yisrael. They said, just look, the God-fearing woman is the one that matters. Vayim in the pasuk says, "Tunula mi priyade ve'halu b'sharim maseha." V'chino omer, similarly the pasuk says, "Tzaino, go forth, Rena, go see b'noi Sion, b'melech Shloimo." Also the day of the weddings at Matan Torah. That's referring to when the Torah was given. The day of happiness at Binyan Beis Hamikdash. This is referring to the building of the Beis Hamikdash, the day where the heart was happy, and it should be built speedily in our days. And it should be pointed out, Rashi points out over here that Yom Kippur, the last luchos were given. That is why it's Matan Torah, the day that the Torah was given. Shosh Pagim Mishana Kohanim Noisim campaign 3 times during the year the Kohanim would ducha and they would lift their hands. Taanis Amados Mi Ika Musaf. What do you mean on a fast and on the Mados time? Is there a Musaf? So how could you explain Mechsri Mechsri? No, the Mishnah is lacking words. Vachitoni. This is what it should say. Shosh Pagim 3 times Kohanim Noisim campaign. The Kohanim, they're going to lift their hands. They're going to ducha and calls mentions palim whenever they daven. And some of them have 4 times. B'yom Shachris is referring to on Yom Kippur, you would do it 4 times. You would do it Shachris, Mosaf Mincha, and Nila Sharim, closing of the gates. It should be pointed out, I forgot to mention before, Rashi in the Mishnah says that Ni'ilo Sha'arim, some say it's called Ni'ilo Sha'arim Mikdash because they would lock the gates of the base of Mikdash. Some say it's called Ni'ilo, the locking, the closing, because that's like the end of the time for davening on Yom Kippur. So you had a few explanations over there. So those were the 4 times in Yom Kippur, Ve'in Lein Shlosh Brachim. And the following are the 3 times. This is referring to when they would duchen, whenever they would daven. Okay, Tanius and Madus Yom Kippurim. It would be on fast. My Madus Yom Kippur. Amar Rab Nachman, Amar Rabba Bar Avu. Rab Nachman said in the name of Rabba the son of Avu. As Odivri Meir, this is going in accordance to Rabbi Meir. V'Achlam, remember the Chamim say Shachris and Moshe Jeshim Misias Kapayim Mincha V'Yilim Misias Kapayim. Only specifically Shachris and most of that's when they would duchen. However, Mincha and Elo they would not duchen. Man Chachamim, who's this opinion of Chachamim? Rabbi Yehudi. It's really Rabbi Yehudi. Danya Kazabais said Shachris and most of Mincha V'Yilim Lo Kulim Yesh Misias Kapayim Divri Meir. In Shachris, most of Mincha and Elo they would all duchen in all those times. That's according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda, Oimer, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he would say Shachris Musaf Mesias Kapayim Mincha V'Yilim Mesias Kapayim. Specifically Shachri Musaf, that's when they would duchen. However, Mincha and Elo they would not duchen. Rabbi Yossi, Omer, according to Rabbi Yossi, Nili Yeshem Mesias Kapayim Mincha Mesias Kapayim. According to Rabbi Yossi, specifically Ne'ilah, that's what they would duchen. However, Mincha they would not duchen. Ma'ika Miflgi, what are they arguing about? Rabbi Meir Savar Kol Yom and Time and my Lord Pirish Kohanim Yadayim Minchaso. Rabbi Meir says every single day. What's the reason why the Kohanim don't duchen? By Mincha Mishum Shechusid Naleka Shechut, because people might be intoxicated. You're not allowed to duchen when you're intoxicated. However, on a fast, no one's intoxicated because no one's drinking, no one's eating. You don't need to worry about that. Therefore, you're allowed to duchen. However, Rabbi Yehuda says, wait, Rabbi Yehuda Savar Shachs and most of the Kol Yom Elosh Kiach Shechus Ol Chazer Bei Rabbanim Mincha Miyum Kol Yom Mashkich Shechus Chazer Bei Rabbanon. No, Shachus and most of every single day, it's not commonly found that people will be intoxicated at such an early hour of the day. Therefore, the rabbis didn't decree Lo Chazer Bei Rabbanon. However, Mincha Ne'ilu time, the Kol Yom Mashkich Shechus every single day, it is common that people could be intoxicated because the rabbis decreed Rabbi Yossi Savar, Mincha Yisrael Kol Yoima, Gazer Bad Rabbanim Yidavli Yisrael Kol Yoima, Gazer Bad Rabbanim. Yossi says, no, specifically Mincha, that you have it every single day. The rabbis decreed on that, as opposed to in the Elah, that you don't have it every single day. The rabbis didn't decree on that. Amr Yehuda Amar Rav, Rabbi Yehuda the same the name of Rav Halacha Rabbi Meir. The halacha is in accordance to Rabbi Meir, who we just quoted above. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Nagu Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yochanan says the custom, the nation accustomed themselves like Rabbi Meir. Rav Amar Minik Rabbi Meir. Rav says the custom is like Rabbi Meir. Man Amar Halacha Rabbi. What's the difference between the three? Man Amar Halacha Rabbi Meir. Dashin Lamapirkan. The person who said that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. So then we could even teach that in a shir. You're allowed to teach that even. Okay, so that's going to be if you're going to hold that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Okay, that's going to be, yeah. Now, that's the halacha like Rabbi Meir. Man da Amar Minog, the person who said that it was a custom, that we're going to be custom like Rabbi Meir, that was actually Rabbi Yochanan. So the halacha is like Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. The one who said that it's a custom, aka Rabbi Yochanan, man da Amar Minog, so the person who said it's a custom like Rabbi Meir, Midrash Shol Dashinu Marina. We don't teach that, but if someone asks us the halachic question, the shaila, we would rule that way. Mandamar Nahagu, but the one who says it's a custom like Rabbi Meir, that's going to be Rava. So then, Mandamar Nahagu Uri Lamarina vi Ovid Vlamadrinale. We also don't rule like that, but if a person went like that, so then it's okay and he doesn't need to go back. Rav Nachman Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi. Rav Nachman says the halacha is actually in accordance to Rabbi Yossi, and the halacha is it goes in fact according to Rabbi Yossi. Oh, according to that, the Bach says, Ella, according to that, what's the reason why Kohanim do not duchen then? Excuse me, what's the reason why they do duchen during Mincha fast? The answer is giving them a selfless. She is a chama kaparshi ketvilas nilas dami. Since they duchen near the time of sunset, therefore kaparshi they are spreading their hands, their palms. Therefore, it's considered like neilo. It's comparable, and therefore will be permissible. Everyone agrees you're not allowed to duchen when you're intoxicated. Where do you get this from? What's the pasuk? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the son of Levi, said in the name of Bar Kapara, why is there a juxtaposition between the parsha of a kohanim who blesses everyone to why is it juxtaposed to the parsha of a nazir? Loimer, it's coming to tell you, man Nazir also bayayin of Kohanim mevarech bayayin, just like a Nazir is prohibited to drink wine, so too a Kohen is not allowed to do so. He's going to bless, who is going to bless everyone. Maskif love. We've been attacking his statement. Avua the Rabbi Zayro, Avua the Rabbi Zayro v'amilan. Some say Oshia Bar Zavda. We have attacking a statement from him, and he says, Iman Nazir also bechartzim have Kohen mevarech also bechartzim. If you're going to say, what about a Nazir? It's prohibited for him to consume grape pits. So too a Kohen who's going to bless everyone. He's not allowed to have the grape pits. I'm Rabbi Yitzchak. I'm the pasuk says the shari soul varach b'shem. Someone's going to serve and bless his name. Ma mishades mutar b'chartzon ma'af koyin mevarech mutar b'chartzon. Just like someone who's going to serve is permissible in the grape pits, so too the Kohen who's going to make the blessing, it's permissible with the grape pits. Ask the Gemara Yimeshades Balmum Loy. Avkoyim Mavarach Balmum Lo. Maybe you'll say someone who's going to serve, aka, like Rashi explains, serving the base of Mikdash, who, as Rashi explains, obviously is only not allowed to drink. If you're going to say Imam Mishar Balmum Loy, someone who's serving is not allowed to have a blemish. So too, Avkoyim Mavarach Balmum Lo. So too, a Kohen who is blessing everyone cannot have a blemish. No, that's already he's already attached to a nazir, saying that the blemish would be okay. Kohen is blessing him. Why did you see that you should attach him leniently, attach him stringently? Tosfos has a whole explanation, the second one on this Amud over here, and he explains, why did you say that you should attach a Kohen to a Nazir and be lenient, as if to say that a Nazir, if he had a Baal Mom, so too a Kohen, if he had a blemish, he's going to be kosher to bless everyone. And you said just like a Kohen who is serving is permissible to have the grapes, so to the Kohen who's blessing everyone. Why didn't you be stringent and say that just like a Nazir is prohibited to have the grapes, so to the Kohen who's blessing everyone is not allowed to have the grapes? And just like the Kohen who is serving is prohibited if he has a blemish, so to the Kohen who's blessing everyone. Answers the Gemara, Asmachtaninu midrabanan viluk ulo. Some take out the midrabanan. It's based on a pasuk, and therefore it's rabbinic, and we could be lenient. Taisvus on Chavav Amud Aleph. The first Tosfos in this perek says every single day where we say Hallel, you don't do a Maimid. He explains that this is on Chanukah. Second Tosfos explain right because on Chanukah other days we don't find that without a Korban Musaf. The second Tosfos says Korban Musaf, there's no Ne'ilah. A day when they would bring the Musaf, there's no Ne'ilah because everyone's going to be preoccupied with the Musaf and they don't have time to say Ne'ilah. Tosfos on Chavav Amud Beis explains that Mincha Ne'ilah every single day people could commonly get intoxicated. The rabbis decreed on that, even on a day where there's a fast and people wouldn't be getting intoxicated. Interesting addition from Taisus, and then he continues with another point. The third Taisus on this page says nowadays the custom is that Kohanim they do duchen in Musaf because since it's near the time of Shkia, and therefore Taisus says. That's why lakach lanogu am lo mercias kapayim b'mincha b'yom kippur. That's why we don't duchen on mincha on Yom Kippur because we daven when it's still day. However, mincha on other fasts you should duchen. Nevertheless, even on the Elo on Yom Kippur, you should probably duchen as well. That's Tosfos. We will continue next time.